And I know if you're here and you're listening right now, you care and you desire healthier relationships in your life and you want to know how to better be connected. You don't want to be alone, but you also just need to feel love for yourself before you can feel totally confident in loving another person. If you're experiencing the pains of not being able to love yourself fully, and you feel like that's what's holding you back from having healthy relationships, then these practices will teach you how to love yourself as long as you can apply them into your life. Hey guys, it's Yana here again. I'll be diving into the practices that I use to really pull myself out of my darkest days and the feelings that I had of feeling worthless and disconnected from everyone, honestly. And I just had this discussion with someone who used to be a coach of mine. It's amazing to see the connections that, we hold on to and the meaning of those things. I just remember feeling at that time like I wasn't connected to anyone or anything. And it was truly because I didn't love myself. And so I couldn't even feel safety in connection with other people. And this tears apart relationships because, for one, you don't even know your boundaries, you don't know what your needs are, which just creates dysfunction in a lot of your relationships. Whether that's learned from trauma or not, people struggle with that every day, and communicating it is the next step. But also being able to feel like you are worthy of life is this internal shift, this transformation that I want all of you guys to be able to experience. And so by creating this course, by creating these videos, by being able to share with you all of my experiences and all of the knowledge that I can from the research and the amount of time that I've spent passionately just studying this stuff, my goal is to help all of this guide you through this self-love journey to be able to create these healthy, amazing, and loving, fulfilling relationships in your life that we all deserve, that we all crave. Maybe you don't feel like you deserve it right now, then that's why you're here. You landed in the right place. Let's dig a little bit deeper now into self-love and how that is like the beginning stepping stone to be able to build these healthy relationships in our future, to transform our way of living and to transform our self-schema to be able to have these healthy and loving relationships in our lives and hold on to them, as well as learning how to communicate through all these new interactions after we've come out of that communication with ourselves and our hearts. You'll hear me talk about spirit sometimes and that internal love feeling that really just makes you feel like you belong. And it's something about having faith that can change so much in your life. I think one of the best things to remember is no one else is able to live the life that you have. You have this experience that no one else gets to see. No one else gets to know yourself on the deepest levels. And that can seem lonely, that could seem dark if you haven't had this realization that no one else's life is truly better than yours, because they're not able to live your life. Your spirit is this beautiful energy. And I'm just going to hop on my little soapbox right now and just speak on this because I feel it is so important for this huge realization of loving yourself and actually valuing your life. For me, it took getting hit in the head so dang hard that I felt like the life was just knocked out of me. I had a terrible car wreck where I was hit from behind 70 miles per hour to my head, and I might have been out for like 10 minutes, who knows, but I was gone, didn't remember anything. And that experience, when I woke up, even though I felt the most amount of pain in my body that I had ever felt in my entire life, I was smiling. And whether or not I consciously was aware. I feel there was something in that moment where my body and my mind and my spirit all together realized, hey, life could be taken away from you so quickly. And what we have to realize is that this fleeting nature of life is a lesson within itself, not to fear death, but to embrace life and embrace the opportunity that we have for healing our spirit and fulfilling whatever our spirit is needing through every step of every day of our lives. I'll step off of the soapbox now, but that was just my experience and I thought I would share. So that initial moment, that initial wake up moment for me turned me deeper onto this healing path. I came from a lot of trauma, and the behaviors that we pick up in trauma environments and examples of immature behaviors can severely damage our self-schema, can severely damage the way we communicate, the way we have healthy relationships, and our relationship with ourself on a very deep, deep level. So if you tend to self-isolate, and if you feel like this was a behavior that you might have picked up from past trauma, and you struggle with having or feeling like you have healthy relationships or people to turn to, this is what I want you to hear. There's a huge chance that the reason that you feel so alone and feel so misunderstood or disconnected is because whatever treatment or whatever inputs that have been put into your mind from your environment, whether that's from abuse, whether that's from just the traumas that you've been surrounded by in your past, especially childhood or past relationships, those experiences and those inputs can shape your mind to disconnect from yourself, to disconnect from feeling, and that leads to this lack of empathy. Because your body goes into a mode of self-defense, it can block those feelings, and therefore it can block this ability to have empathy for yourself. And it starts to create those problems of self-love because you're internalizing and thinking about this environment as if it was something that's your fault. And especially in childhood, when you are so vulnerable to your parents, to whoever is your caretaker, you are built to love them unconditionally and to follow unconditionally without thinking, oh, this is bad. You know, we're too young. Our brains haven't developed past that point. And if you're in a relationship and you learned to be dependent on a person because of, you know, whether it is the way that they set you up for being dependent on them or not, those experiences wire in our brains and wire these thought patterns that disconnect from feeling our emotions because we are in a state of survival. Now, we want to be able to get out of this state of control and come into this world of courage, this life full of courage. And that can take a lot. So when we talk about self-love, I do so in a way that gives you practices to actually rewire these parts of our minds that get so used to a dependence or a feeling of something's wrong inside of me. So I have to go outside of myself to, you know, seek validation, to know which way to go, to have an approval of how I'm supposed to feel, things like that. So here are the tips and tricks. So the thing that you need most to be able to feel like you value your life again is this moment of clarity and the time to sincerely feel what is within yourself and what you are experiencing in your being, your life, and in your mind. Emotionally, physically, spiritually, all of those things combined. And the way that best helped me and could very well help you if you tend to self-isolate, or if you have these walls that are so tightly built up that in your mind you're not able to think through these things in a way that comes to a true response, because you might be relying on a behavior response from, your traumatic past. It's to use journaling as a main tool to transforming your thoughts, to transforming your self-schema, and to adopting a time to sit with yourself and have clarity and to sincerely feel through your writing. The best way to structure this journaling is to, for one, take a scan of where your body is at, to take that time for peace and quiet, right? And with that scan of where we're at, usually there's going to come a worry. There's going to come a thought. There's going to come this anxiousness, this internal, whatever feeling it is. That is what we are going to write down. That is what needs to be written down first. What is the worry? What is the feeling? What are the feelings that you're feeling in that moment? That is the first thing we're going to throw down on this journal. And as we process the list of emotions, it typically will map out more clearly what it is we are actually worried about or what it is we're fearing. That would be the second entry. So at this point, you're going to write, I am worried about blank. We are going to write what we are worried about, what fear it is that is driving all of those emotions that we're feeling in that last prompt. Feel free to adjust and use this as your brain pad, use this as your scribble pad. Now, so after we've written down what our worry is, what this fear is, and what it's coming from, we have to then do something super courageous, okay? And bear with me for this one. We have to accept the worst possible case scenario, and we have to be okay with that happening. If we fear that our behavior or our anxieties are affecting a relationship negatively and poorly, and we're afraid that they're going to leave us, we're afraid that we're not ready for a relationship, or we're afraid to communicate our true emotions and feel like this disconnect is what's going to lead us down a path of loneliness, we have to be able to accept that that is a possibility, accept that that is the worst that could happen, accept it, and then improve upon it. So this is where the fourth thing comes, and this is my favorite part of it, because once you can say, okay, this is the worst possible case scenario, and, if I don't do anything and this is what's going to happen, well, F it, this is what's going to happen. And in accepting that that is the worst case scenario and being able to live with it, then we're finally able to get out of this constant battle within our minds of worrying about something that could be out of our control. But what happens, and is the most beneficial part about this practice, is this fourth aspect. We want to put our minds into the state of someone who would be in your corner, an imaginary best friend, a best friend if you have one, and to write solutions to our problems, possibilities that would be able to take us out of this worry state and be something we can implement to be able to feel better, to feel relief. And a lot of times that is just listing all of the options that you have to be able to shift the state of being that you're in. For example, if you are worried about failing in your business or dropping the ball in some sort of fashion, you can use all of the action steps that you could do to prevent that worry from happening and be very detailed about the approach that you're going to take in those actions. Feel free to apply this to personal examples. I have just been on a business-minded trek for a while, so now we've written down all of these options and we can take a better rational sense of what our worry is and realize that, we have so many options and that we're not hopeless with whatever it is that is going through our minds. And the most beneficial part about this fourth aspect is this. We get to map out all of the options that we have that are better than the worst case scenario that we've already accepted as it's okay if it happens. So any of the options that you choose would be better than that worst case scenario. And we can approach things in a rational mind because we're not feeling so scared and emotionally drawn to the negative. Now we can put our minds in a state of mind that can see and think outside of the box of this intense, controlled fear state of mind. This is the transformation that journaling can do for you. And for example, you fear that this person that you love is going to leave. Okay. Worst case scenario, they leave. We have to be okay with that. Now, what can we do to improve upon the situation? Now, this can be a very specific thing for people's different relationships, but we can approach what we do to improve upon this worst case scenario, like taking extra time for our partner or deciding to come clean about how you may have been feeling after an argument. Whatever the case, you choose the action that you want to take that will improve upon worst case scenario after you accept that the worst case scenario is something that you can be okay with living with. And I mentioned my car wreck before, and I think that this serves kind of as a good example on the most like clear cut way of understanding this concept. And I'd like to also mention that this journaling process that I've used, I adopted from Dale Carnegie's How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And that was such a great tool to be able to understand how worry works and the impact that it can have if we don't approach these fears that hold us back from feeling self-love and that hold us back from doing the things that can shift our minds from feeling so down and depressed or feeling so alone into this life of just feeling better and not feeling so stressed out about things. So with my car wreck, that was a very close call, right? I had to realize that the worst case scenario that could have happened in that scenario was me dying. And I had to be okay with and accept the possibility of death after that moment because I feared so badly and had so much anxiety about cars and driving or, being a passenger in a car, getting hit from behind, all of those things. Being able to accept death as the worst case scenario then just made the options of improving upon that like endless because, oh my gosh, well, death is the worst case scenario. So how can I improve upon death? Well, I could live life to the fullest, And I think that this is like why people have this like eye-opening experience after a near-death experience, because they realize how fleeting life is. And with talking about my spiritual feelings of love and this importance of life, that was like the eye-opening thought, revelation. So journaling in this way of taking note of what we fear and what we're worrying about can only improve upon our situation. And it allows us to be our best friend, to be compassionate to ourselves, to improve upon the things that we are worrying about that we don't have to constantly have fear over, because that controls us. Creating this time for yourself to sincerely feel your emotions, to sincerely take a look at where your mind, body, and spirit is, what state you're in. It teaches you what healthy love and compassion looks like for other people, because you know then how to do that for yourself. You feel the empathy to understand and sit with the emotions that you have, to take the time to sit with those emotions, and then approach these emotions after feeling them in a rational mind that is there for yourself. And that is that compassion piece. The options that you write after you accept that worst case scenario are those pieces of compassion, and you're amping up your feelings so that you change your mood. The worst case scenario, even if it did happen, you would know that you did give it your best shot and your rational decision was what you felt was the best for you. This can also help with boundaries. Not to mention, you're just going to feel better whenever you make a decision for yourself instead of seeking for validation from other sources or worrying about it so much that you end up having to vent to somebody and then they don't know what to do and they end up giving you advice and you're like, I don't want advice. Anyways, let's just ignore that whole situation if we can improve upon it, you know? So taking this time for yourself by developing this habit, you are developing your self-love. You're developing self-empathy. You're developing self-compassion. These are all of the things that improve your relationships. And I know if you're here and you're listening right now, you care and you desire healthier relationships in your life and you want to know how to better be connected. You don't want to be alone, but you also just need to feel love for yourself before you can feel totally confident in loving another person, because you don't want to lose yourself. And that was a fear, a real fear that I had as well. You show yourself compassion so that you can also show others compassion. So act accordingly to the decisions that you make to improve upon that worst case scenario. Look at those solutions. Understand that these solutions, they come from you. Own that. Nothing is more empowering to be able to take a scan of your emotional wellness and your wellness as a whole and be able to adjust your life in a way that you choose. This transformation is something that I believe all of you can have. It's something that I had and have fully lived and experienced through all of the research and all of the books and the practices and journaling. I've been able to reach it in a shorter amount of time than originally I thought would be possible. So I want to be able to make it so much easier for you than it felt like for me. And I also want to connect you with other people who are dealing with the same thing, because I did it alone. And it's so hard when you feel like you're alone through things sometimes to consistently approach self-healing in a confident way. So that's what this is all about. This is what the Lessons in Love course is providing. It's providing community. It's providing practice. It's also providing accountability, because you have a partnership within this community. You have people who are in your corner, who are able to speak on the similar feelings and experiences coming out of these states of emotional distress and lack of self-confidence, lack of self-love, and the most painful, that lack of healthy relationships. So in this community, because we're all focused on this and have this similar goal, it's so much easier to develop healthy relationships and practice that within the community itself. So if you're watching this video and you're thinking, wow, you want to be involved, I need a space to feel safe and free to express and to practice and to have this accountability, because I want these healthy relationships in my life and I know I can transform my life and I deserve it, then I strongly encourage you to get connected. Follow the link in my bio and the link that I'll provide in the show notes, and get notified when the course launches. And feel free to also comment on this video of what your current needs are and what you would want to see in this course, what your struggling points are with developing a healthy, loving relationship with yourself, and the pain points of the relationships that you want to build outside of just yourself. Please remember that you are not alone through any of the heartache. If you don't feel that love for yourself right now, it is something that you can develop, and healthy relationships is something that you deserve in your life. We're going to work through these fears together, guys. So connect with me, talk with me. Let's share stories and learn a little bit more about each other and what healthy love looks like. Alrighty, guys. Peace out. I love you. If you had to tell me what truly helped you learn how to love yourself, what would you be able to tell me?